Welcome back to my metacognition as I work through all the concepts I've learned in GLAD training, guided language acquisition development. I am Madame Sensei. I teach Spanish, French, and Japanese to high schoolers out here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And I'm continuing my final thoughts on the Pictorial Input Chart, or PIC. Let's compare and contrast it to some things you might already do in your classroom. I like to use Freyer diagrams a lot. Okay, Freyer diagram is 4 quadrants. You have the student write a word that they're tripping up over in the middle. In one quadrant, you have them write the meaning. Sometimes I have them write in English, like this is a first-year Spanish class, but once the students have more language, they can start using the language to define the language. All right. Then I have them write a sentence with the word that they're tripping up over. And then I like to put this quadrant in some weird mental connection that will help them remember the word. This is a memory trick. So some mnemonic or some way that they have of connecting the word to what it means. And then the last quadrant is a drawing. Okay. Another thing I like to do is term information picture, TIP chart, tip chart. Okay. This one, I wrote avoir, besoin de, avoir femme. These are the idioms with avoir. So I'd already filled this out for the students. And I'm like, okay, let's work on our idioms with avoir. So they drew a picture. What is this going to make them remember? And then I always have them rewrite the word right here because I think that the handwriting has been shown to help in memory. So I always make sure that the students are writing a lot. Sometimes you see here, I wrote the words in ahead of time, but I do have a stack of like 300 that I've printed up of just blank. I like 9 by 9 because that gives a lot of pictures per page. Just blank ones. Sometimes I'm like, okay, well, we need to work on a few terms. Guys, choose 9 terms you like. Sometimes the lesson is just going south, and I'm like, the students are not remembering any of this, and I can just quickly grab my stack of blank paper and pass it out and pass out the markers and the colored pencils and say, all right, go through your notes. Choose 9 words you're tripping up on. Draw me a picture for each of them, okay? So this is really nice to have in my back pocket, especially when... when the lesson needs to, you need to prove your flexibility on your Danielson evaluation, you know. So we do a lot of drawing in my class. It's important. Memory is visual, so drawing is important. You might also sketch note. I don't have an example of sketch noting here. Unfortunately, I didn't put that in. But sketch noting, another great thing to do. So in looking at some of the other tools we have, the sketchnoting, the term information picture, the Freyer diagrams, one of the real advantages that the pictorial information chart has over these things is that suddenly we have our comprehensible input. We have all the words living together in the one picture. And it makes things more connected, more memorable, I think. I mean, when I pass out the Freyer diagrams, the students are basically, you know, we follow a textbook for my Spanish class because I'm one of 4 Spanish teachers and we all have to pretty much march lockstep in case any student transfers from one class to another, or as they go from Spanish 1 into Spanish 2, you know, it's nice to know that they all know the same thing. They're not really connecting any of the words of how to describe people together in this picture. They're all isolated. And then here, you know, we're working on prepositions of location. This is great, but, you know, I like it better when we're physically manipulating stuff and putting stuff, like if I have a table full of things and we're describing where those things are, they're all together. So one really nice thing about the pictorial information chart is that everything is living together in the same picture, which I think will be more helpful to memory retention. So I told you in my last episode that I was doing this on my smart board. I had a choice, I thought, to do it either on the smart board or on my whiteboard, or to, of course, make lots and lots of butcher paper hanging up in my class, which I tried and I didn't like that. On the whiteboard, I would have had to erase it in between classes and redo it every single class. On the smart board, I'm able to take a screenshot and save it. Okay, so like here's one class and here's one class, and you know, I drew differently each class. I pulled out different things from the stack, and so food is in a different location on the refrigerator. I set the table a little differently, but it's fine because I saved it. And so now I've got it whenever, you know, the next class, the next day rolls around, or, you know, we're on a block schedule, so it's like 2 days later when I see my students. It's easy to click through and find the right picture. Now, I think a lot about Doug Lemov and his book, Teach Like a Champion, and he talked about the importance of shaving precious seconds off of all your transitions. So make sure your students know how to pass papers back to each other so that it's really efficient and everything. And I do think about that a lot, but I'll tell you, when I had the giant rolls of butcher paper, that took me forever to get through, to sort through and say, wait, which was period 2 again? Oh, here's period 2. Nope, sorry, that was period 4. Oops, the rubber band broke. I got to get a new rubber band so I can roll it up. And oh, I've got to unroll it and put it up, and now I have to take it down. And that just took too much time. This is pretty instantaneous. So that was a real advantage. The other thing that has been really, really great is that instead of having one giant poster, I now have 30 little posters in the classroom. Okay, so the students have all drawn on their own 11 by 17, sorry, paper, and they've made these beautiful drawings. We can have a gallery walk, and every student not only sees their own poster, but they see all their classmates' posters. Okay, and memory is visual, so that's all going to be great reinforcement when they say, oh, I like the way you drew your chicken leg, you know, or whatever. So they got my poster, they got their posters. At the end of the day, because they're 11 by 18, they're too hard for the students to put in their backpacks. The students would crumple them up, and the students would fold them up and everything. So I collect them and I put them in a cabinet, and they're easy enough for me to take out and pass out again. And the students can't help, you know, they're at tables of 6 students per table. They can't help but look at their classmates' posters as well as mine. And I guarantee you all my students draw better than I do anyway. So that's a very good thing. Let me finish up by saying things that were not working. Okay, so you remember I was talking about how if I had used the whiteboard, I would have printed up on cardstock little label cards and put sticky tape on the back. Now, this is a normal technique of the pictorial input chart. At some point when you're done creating it and it's hanging up, you've written on it, then you go and you randomly pass out to the students some cards, okay? And the cards have sticky tape on the back. And then you just start talking to the students about, oh, the hydroelectric dam has water in it, and the water creates electricity by making the wheel move. And the student who has the card wheel will say, oh, that's my card. And the very second you say wheel, the student jumps up and runs up, and on the pictorial input chart, they tape up their card. There's already tape on the back. There's nothing for the student to do. They just stick it up onto the pictorial input chart, okay? Well, that was not working for me. I was looking for a screenshot of Price is Right because I was trying to think about what can I show you of people running around like chickens with their heads cut off, okay? So suddenly everyone is in front of this thing that I'm trying to describe. Nobody else can see it because there's 3 students who've heard their word and they're crowding around it, all right? And it really was a free-for-all. It really was a, oh, I heard my word. I'm jumping up. I'm putting it up right now. And if I can say, the students got tunnel vision, or can I call it tunnel hearing? They had a card in their hand, and maybe the card said, le panier, the basket, okay? Because they were listening for the word for the basket for being in a grocery store. And they were like, okay, I'm listening for my word. So they weren't listening to anything else I was saying. They were just listening for that one word, le panier. And then as soon as they heard it, they jumped up, they put the card up, and then they sat down, and then they weren't listening to anything else I said. It was total tunnel hearing, all right? So I'm not going to be doing that anymore. I'm not even going to experiment with it anymore. I think I've seen enough of that part of the technique, but I really, really, really loved modeling in front of my students how to draw a bad stick figure drawing and labeling it and then having the students draw that themselves. I had really great success. First of all, they were all 100% engaged, and keeping them in the target language, really, that was very easy to do, and I thought that was a very effective technique. So I really like that, and I've been doing it a lot more since my initial experiments. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about the big book, and this is also something really in our wheelhouse, and I'll talk about all my thoughts of that. And once again, check out my website, www.studio-nemo.com, if you want a printout version of everything I'm talking about here, or tag me on the Duolingo Educator Network on Facebook, and I'll see you on the next episode.